Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another episode. Today's going to be all about 5 things that I do and maybe you should do or think about doing for changing the default settings on new cameras. I was hoping I'd get some lightning back there or maybe sunset over here. And I did see 1 or 2 bolts, but it looks like we might be a dud for both. So I have a time lapse going anyways, but I figured this would be a good time to go over some of the settings that I like to change whenever I get a new camera, and things that I think would be behooving to you if you're new to this photography stuff and you want to get the most out of your camera. So let's jump into it. So the first thing that's the most important to me, especially as a professional photographer, but even a professional photographer aside, the most important to anyone who wants to get the most out of their images, like if you know you're going to be editing them and you want the most out of your images, the most important thing is switching from JPEG to RAW. And if you don't know about, I'm not going to go into detail about what RAW is, but I have a whole video on that explaining the differences between JPEG and RAW. You can check that out right here. There was bolt. I knew I pointed the time lapse in the wrong direction. There's another bolt right there over Western, right over the university. But essentially, RAW will help you if you want to edit more. It'll help you bring out those edits, and if you're serious about your photography and you know what you want, switching to RAW is the best thing you can do. So I do that right off the bat. The second thing I do right off the bat is I change it to back button focusing. Back button focusing is really important to me because it takes the focus, it uncouples or untriggers the focus from the trigger button. So from this guy right here, it undoes that, and then you can assign it to one of these buttons back here. And that is really handy for a lot of reasons. And again, I'm not going to go into that because conveniently I have another video explaining the benefits of back button focus and showing you how to set it up. So you can check that out right here. So that's number 2. All right, so the number 3 thing that I always do, and this may not be important to everyone, but it is important if you are interested in the following: astrophotography, long exposure photography of any sort. So that feature that I turn off, and it's on by default, is called long exposure noise reduction. So what does this do? This will mean that the camera, when you're taking long exposures, it will try to reduce the noise of the image to make it look a little cleaner in camera. Now that might sound cool initially, and it's definitely always good having low noise and all that, but the problem is that when that feature is turned on, it takes the same amount of time as your shutter speed duration to write that to the card after your shutter speed duration. So if I'm trying to do a time lapse or anything like this with long exposure and I want to keep my duration short for my interval between images, then that can get really difficult. If I'm trying to do a long exposure like this, where I have a super long 20, 30 plus second exposure, you can see how that would get real annoying and real time consuming real fast. And then don't even get me started on if you want to do a star trail shot like this and you want to do like a 90-minute shot. So suffice it to say, if you're into long exposure photography or time lapses or anything like that, astrophotography, this is a setting you're definitely going to want to turn off so that you can speed up the intervals in between your shots and not be taking up so much time with the buffering. All right, the 4th thing that I like to change, and again, this might not be for everybody, but if you are the type of person who likes to do video with your DSLRs, especially, then this is something that you're going to want to think about, and that's the color profile. So I definitely go in there and I create my own flat color profile by reducing the contrast and the saturation and the sharpness to varying degrees to get a flatter profile to help with increasing dynamic range, and because I know that I'm going to be editing and applying my own LUTs and all of that stuff. Now, I also leave this profile when I shoot stills. So I'm shooting stills right now on this, and I keep the same flat profile, and that's personally because I know that I'm going to be editing and I know how that I edit. So I change the profiles to match how I'm gonna be editing. And I'm not telling you or recommending that you change them to a flat profile like me necessarily. Oh my God, there's more lightning over there. This is ridiculous. I'm gonna fix that in a minute. What I'm trying to say here is keep in mind the way that you want to shoot. If you don't want to edit that much, then change the profile to something that looks better in camera. That way you don't have to deal with it as much. So maybe keeping the saturation and the contrast at a little higher levels to get you closer to where you want in camera to create less editing for you. But either way, the color profiles are definitely overlooked, I think, for both photo and video. And that's what I do. That's always one of my first go-to changes, is making sure that my color profiles match how I want them to be. So the last thing that I like to change, oh my God, that's Dad. My dad just rode by on a motorcycle right now. And he's gonna ride by and he's gonna see Kamen. He's gonna see our Subaru. I wonder if he's gonna stop. That's funny. Small world. So the last thing that I change that drives me absolutely bonkers is the autofocus beep. So you know when you get a new camera and you hit the autofocus and it beeps to let you confirm that it has focused where you want it? Yeah, that drives me nuts. When you're in a situation where you're shooting a wedding or you're shooting portraits or you're shooting an event or anything like that and you have that beep constantly going off because you're constantly refocusing, I turn that off. So again, that's just my preference. And definitely for wildlife, if y'all follow my channel, you know I'm a big wildlife photographer. I do a lot of wildlife photography, and scaring off animals with stupid beeps and little birdies that are little flappy birds that are already hard enough to find and shoot in the face, definitely turn the stupid beep off. That's just my personal preference, but that's how I roll. All right, well, that's it. So I'm gonna wrap it up here because I've got some serious lightning to shoot in the face right over here. I've got to finish this time lapse and get it over there. And I'm gonna wrap it up here. So if you have any questions about any of those things that I went over or didn't go over concerning the 5 things that I do to fix my camera and make it my happiness settings, leave those in the comments below and I'll definitely answer them. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Oh, hey, don't forget to subscribe. I got new videos every Tuesday and Friday.